All right, so now I'm going to create a text on the path for one of these logos, and I kind of like this one, so I'm going to grab it, make a little screenshot. Shift Command 4, stealing for the sake of education. Now I'm going to go into Illustrator and start a new file, Command N, and here are the intents of web pages. So just so I am being clear, I'm going to be making this for print, so I'm going to choose print, and when I design in print dimensions, Illustrator is making my document in 300 pixels per inch, 300 ppi, and I will click OK. And this object is on my desktop, so I'll place it. File place. Shift Command P. Shift Command P. And this would be on the desktop, and this would be screenshot, and this would be place. And I'm going to click and drag so it's large. Excellent. Next, I'll go to the Layers panel, and I will lock this layer and click away from that layer to create a brand new distinct layer, not an object inside this layer. And I will now start with my text layout. What I like to do is I like to find my font and other design elements before I start putting everything together. So I'm just going to make black text first, and I'll click, and as soon as I see my flashing cursor, I can tell the height of the flashing cursor is too short, not big enough, and I will make it about 4 times the size and type my text. Boot. There it is. Boot. I'm going to do this text on a path a couple of different ways so you get some ideas of ways you might approach this. So here's the word boot, and I'll switch to the regular selection tool and make sure when I select this text that it is on the center mark. So I've reselected it, and then I'm using centered text. And oddly, that is the center of the page. That's pretty cray-cray that I was actually able to place this artwork in the middle of the page. That's just because if you practice stuff a lot, it starts happening. Right, boot, and then here I'll option drag and type the word shoe. And I need the word or the symbol for and. I should have made that second. So I duplicated shoe again. And I'll go back to and there, boot and shoe. So if I had not decided on the font yet for boot and shoe, I would likely do the following. I would make some copies of the text, usually outside of my document, like so. And these copies of the text for the document, not the document itself, but the text, serve as places where I can now play with different fonts and get an idea of how I want them to look. So I'm going to choose this thing called Myanmar font. That's cute, but it's not it. And I want something that's more compressed. That's better. It's just not really fun, though. I probably should go and get a more fun handwriter font, but I don't want to break away to do that right now. This will probably look really bad. See if I can see how horrible that is. Yep, that's bad. Do not want that. So I'll leave that one and go to the next one. And select the second grouping of text and choose another font. I feel like I have better choices that I'm just not seeing. How about Arista, A-R-I. Arista, how would that look? Arista. Yeah, I kind of like that. Now, here's a case where I like the font, but I feel like it looks strange for the and symbol. That's one part. Don't like the and symbol at all. It looks wobbly. And the text overall looks very expanded, and I want something more condensed. So I might, although I can't say I'm a huge proponent of squishing text, I will try it anyway. I'll go to the character tab, and at the character tab, I will condense or smush the type. I'm going to show the options, and here I have horizontal compression, horizontal scale, and I'll bring that down by holding the shift key and the down arrow. I'm able to go down 10% at a time, and I don't love that. I'll go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll just go another couple there. That's it. So I'm going to go with 86. It's an even number. I don't dislike it. It's not great, but for our purposes, it'll be fine. Over here, I have my tracking and kerning. So I want to set tracking. I'm going to open up the tracking here. You can see the spacing between the letters are increasing, and that looks better. All right, now I'll leave that one alone and do one more. And clearly, I should have looked at fonts before I started this tutorial, but I'm really focusing on the text on the path aspect of this. And let's try this one called Source Code Pro, and that's my favorite one. So I'm going to go with that one, Source Code Pro. Nothing fancy. Now, to get this roundy look, assuming that I actually want it to not be circular, but rather this more oval shape, I'm imagining where the top left corner of the circle is. And when I click and drag out, I'm following the sketch, flipping this to have stroke as no fill, and I'm going to make it a color that's bright so I can see it, while I won't eventually keep this artwork this color. That's the approximate shape I want, and this is the moment where I would do any hand squishing, hand scaling. And move it with the arrow keys on my keyboard. So everything is staying symmetrical. Okay, the next thing is I'm going to duplicate this circle shape. So it's selected, and I'm going to go to the scale tool. This is important. The origin point currently is center, which is what I want. And if I press the Option key and click and drag, if I make sure this shape is selected, it sure looks selected to me. What? Oh, that's the issue. All right, let's just click cancel and try that again. So I'm going to try that again. I'm going to click and I'm going to click the Option key. No, I'm just going to click the center of the circle. Yes, I've done it. And now I'm clicking and dragging, and now I'm pressing the Option key. So I'm dragging to the right side. Let me say that again, okay? Circle is not selected. Unselect. Nothing up my sleeves. Presto. Click. The object is automatically selected by center or origin point center. And so I'm going to click and start dragging, then hold the Option key, which will copy the object. And if I hold the Shift key now, I should be constraining to the same ovularity. So they match now. I have the concentric ovals. Now, one thing that you might notice is the style of these lines doesn't really match a painterly kind of a line style. But I'll see if I can inject that in afterwards. But what it does show, and is important to recognize, is that the word boot curves on its bottom of the word, and the word shoe curves on the top. So I'm going to now make another layer. Here we go. I'm going to select all of the circles by clicking and dragging across them and copy. Command C. Just did edit copy. Okay. And then I'll create a new layer. Click away, add a new layer, make sure that layer is selected, and Command F, that's paste in front, so that I have an original and a copy, right, of the same things. I'm going to hide, and did I paste it on there? F, paste in front. There, it's really, really there now. Okay, so now if I hide this layer and I show that layer, I bet you I inadvertently put 2 here. Yep, so I pasted on the wrong layer a moment ago. Did you understand what I did? Okay, so now I know this has one set and this has the other set. Good news. All right, so I'll hide this bottom set here. Now I'll hide the top set, and I'll use the bottom set because the bottom set has the text. Using this specific tool, which is the Type on Path tool, there it is. I am going to select the word boot and copy it, Command C. That word was set on center or aligned center. When I typed it, I made sure it was aligned center. And when I click on this circle now, really, Abigail, when I click on the circle now, I am clicking on it, and then go to the text tool. Let's try it again. The Type on the Path tool, and I click right on the path. It now makes the path seem invisible. The path is still there. You should be watching now, not trying to do it. If you're trying to do it when I'm doing it, you probably need to stop doing that because you need to watch while I'm doing it. I'm making a video, so you can watch the video later. Command V is for paste. Now I can see the word boot is there. It doesn't show up where I want it to be, but it's there. And I'll give it a color. This is not going to be the final color, but it is now that color. Now when I click away, which I'm using right now, the lasso tool, and I put my cursor right on this line that's sticking out from it, can you see that line? That is a handle. And if I rotate on the outside of the line, I'm staying towards the outside of the line. It's kind of jumpy. Oh, please don't crash. I have the spinning beach ball of death. It's so sad for me. Gosh darn it anyway. All right, so here's one way to get out of that when that happens. It definitely looks crashy, but I might not lose everything. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Screen Flow, and I'm going to do pause and click. All right, so now if I click on this little handle and I want to stay outside the circle, and it wants to jump. It doesn't really like the top of that curve so much, so I'm going to let go at a certain point, and then I'm going to click these little squares. Now these squares have a name. They are called the in port and the out port, and now I'm going to see if I can zoom in. You can see there are 2 little guys there. One square and another square. Those are called the in port and the out port, and they do not want to separate. I'm going to try again. I'm going to click on the handle part. Okay, so I'm spinning around. Love you. And let go again. And that is now at the top. Boot. Okay. Font doesn't match. Roundness matches. Now I'm going to set some other settings and try and make it match. I really do need a different typeface, but I'm going to just try anyway. So I'm going to select the text, and I'm going to increase the size of the text. Now the problem with doing this is it's going to be spread apart a little bit more than I want it to be, but I can see now this is closer to the height that I want it to be. Okay. And now the tracking, selecting the text and closing up the tracking. Kerning, tracking needs to be a negative number. Stopping right there where the B and the O are about to touch, clicking between the T and the O, and reducing the kerning just on these 2 letters. All right, be aware of the fact that if I did in middle of the design process decide that I wanted to change fonts, you might find it looks very different. This is purely for your learning, not to show you a fabulous design example, but as I change the font, right, it really looks different. The spacing is different because the kerning pairs between these two differently designed fonts don't match. And here I have something really different, which I kind of like, except for the T just looks too German Renaissance or something.
Like a G.
Yeah, it's just gross. Sorry to insult the font maker, but I don't like your G. I try to be nice, but sometimes something's just ugly, right? And this is still Luminari. This will be really bad. I don't want Lithos. I'm going to go with Open Sans. Okay. Now, that's okay. Now I'm going to try to do the word shoes by not actually using the word that I have out sitting on the desktop. Here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to click and drag, Option, click and drag to create another circle. Okay? Then, this is tricky. This is not going to be that easy. Then I'm going to move the position of the word to the bottom, which it doesn't really want to fit, right? It's kind of hard to do this, even for me. I've been using Illustrator for a really long time. Okay, I find it's easiest when you're working on a tight radius. Yes, I'm trying to do something hard on purpose. When you're working on a tight radius, to move the type the way you want it to, get it to be. But it's coming close as I move the handles around. Okay, now I have it closer, and take the end of the type and move it. This should be the end of the type. Doesn't want to go, and almost. See how these are almost at 90-degree angles? That looks pretty good. Now the word is strange. Now this is completely like, what? Okay, so here I need to change the word to shoes and shoe and boot and shoe. Right, so I have this odd selecting scenario. So I triple clicked very quickly on the text. And now I'll change the word to shoe. Glad it's not shoes. Now, to get the type to go inside and be this size and follow that curve is the tricky part of this. So what has to happen is two things. One, I'm pushing up on the line. There it is. So the text shows up inside. Yep. And I'm cranking it over with loving care to where I think it needs to be, let's say there. And then on this side, I have to open this handle up. It's turning it, it's opening it, right? So you're like, that's impossible. You'll never be able to do that. Well, actually, you can do it. Here is the thing. Selecting this text, I'm going to go back a couple steps because it seems antithetical. But what I'm going to do here is I'm selecting the text, and what I need to have happen is I need to use a baseline shift. The baseline shift is actually going to be what occurs on top of the text to push it away from that line. Why don't I just use the bigger circle? Should I use the bigger circle?
Was it inside the bigger circle?
I probably should just use the bigger circle, but again, to get that to line up exactly where I want, I'm still going to have to use a baseline shift. So a baseline shift is show options, is this value that pushes the content away from the line. Right here, set baseline shift. Set baseline shift. Baseline shift at a positive number is pushing the text away from the line. It appears maybe to you that the text is getting larger, but it is not. It's just pushing away from the line. Okay, so.
It would be the same if we use put the space after the line.
Say again about the space after the line part.
We couldn't use that way, right? We have to do the only option. We could do space after.
This is not having to do at all with space after. This is trying to get this, showing you the tricks to getting this type inside the circle. Space after is like paragraph spacing.
Yeah.
That's not going to push it away from the line, I don't believe. I'm going to undo this and make this type a lot smaller. I see where you're going with that. Right, so now type is way smaller. Type is inside the circle. See it now?
Can you do that again?
You're just dragging it, right?
Yeah, I made it smaller. I click on this little line and I drag it in. Right? Now it's inside and now it's actually in the position I want it. Don't. Believe it or not, it actually can be difficult to talk and do this at the same time. It's like my mind is battling. Okay. Someone has to win. Okay, so now there's the word, shoe, and it's where I need it to be. It's inside the circle, but I don't want it to stay inside the circle. I want it to move back out again. So here's that baseline shift number. And if I change that to a negative number, it moves out. You following?
Whoa.
All right, so now that it's a negative number, I'm going to make it a greater negative number, but 12 is the top increment in the presets, so I'm going to increase the negative number and it moves way out. The size of this letter here is 56 points. Select, double click, 56, return. Oh, you can't see it anymore. And you can't see it anymore because these little direction handles, these little freaking direction handles have to be spread out enough that the word shows. This is not their most brilliant invention. Okay? So when I hit that and I'm like, why am I doing this to myself, Steve? I'm going to try it another way. And he's like, yeah. Because that's what Steve says when I say I should do it differently. He says, yeah. Okay, so there's that. Just a circle. Okay, what am I doing? I'm doing it. Who's Steve?
Mhm.
Steve's my best friend. I'm going to
That
talk.
was your inner dialogue.
Yes, Steve is my
that's
imaginary
interesting.
friend. Imaginary friend?
Imaginary design partner.
Yeah. He's a real person. Yeah. All right, so now this is selected again. And here is the text on the path tool again. And here is me clicking on the path again and pasting. Boot. Okay, now it's on the big circle. So for it to end up in that same position as on the other example, I pushed straight up, and now I'm centering it. I'm using pushing up. I'm actually pushing up. There's book, but it has to be inside that circle. Right, so it needs to select it again. And baseline shift. Okay, it's going to get too crunched, but I'll move it in. All right, so that's where I want it.
And can you just use character spacing at that point?
I am going to actually use character spacing now, but using, instead of this negative number, right? I'll put it back to 0. Looks no better. Oh! And now I will space it out. You can see it's going to take a while if I do it like that. I probably need some massive number like 200 or more. So now that I have 200 in here, I'm going to click in the field, hold the shift key, which will push it up 10 increments at a time until it fans out. Right, so the O's are cool, but the B and the T aren't. All right, so you can get an idea of what is going to have happen when you do this, right? So if you did this particular example, okay, and you're going to mess with it. Now, another way that you can handle this at this point is, and this is done a lot, is at this point you would go to type, and change this to create outlines, right? And edit, ungroup, edit, object ungroup, object ungroup, and then I will trash this one and select these letters and start moving them individually. Now this is where it becomes really important to understand how to rotate from a specific origin point. So rotate tool, and I want this to rotate from this corner of the B, the lower left corner. And now as I'm rotating it, it's rotating from that corner. Arrow keys on my keyboard to place that. Same thing again. I'm going to move it to where I think it should, one place on it should stay or stick. I could even do this, and look at this nasty way I'm going to do this. I'm going to take it to the top of the T, where the upper left-hand corner of the T should stay put, okay? And go to the rotate tool and click on this upper left-hand corner of the T, and then I'll just swing it around and it will stay locked down at that first spot I clicked on. And I'll just use the arrow keys to move it into place. Right, so, but if you look at this, it's not going to look really that aligned yet. It's still going to look a little bit kooky. All right, so that's probably the hardest kind of alignment you'll have to do is inside a circle. To do a wavy line is somewhat easier. So I'm going to use the pen tool here, and I'm going to click and drag out a wavy line. Click, click and drag, click and drag, and click. Okay, press the escape key to get, or escape key to get out of the drawing mode and go back to the line mode. So now I'm on a line and not a fill, and I might want to check it out, rotate it at this point, use a horizontal guide, Command R to pull out a guide here. So I might want to determine that the end and the beginning points of the word are level, or whatever you're doing, you know, depending on your design. I know that's not very descriptive, but that's how I want it, so that's straighter. So then again, I could either type my word right on the line, or I could copy and paste my word. So if I already have my word, okay, that looks like doing it this way. And good thing I checked that now, because it has 991, and then it has, that's good. Okay, so there's cobbler, and I can see already that the typeface is too big. So this is a good reason why you might want to do it in advance to putting it on the lines. So some giant -71 here is on the baseline. So all the stuff has to be cleared. Do you see where I am, guys?
Yep.
Okay, so 0. And everything should be cleared. This should be 0, and now everything's better, yeah? And I'll cut it, Command X, and switch to the type on a path tool, and click at the beginning of the path and paste.
Is that, one of my questions is, if one of the hardest things I think is creating shapes with the whatever tool it is, of like bending, like that's just not how my brain thinks. So a lot of times I actually take it draw things. Does Illustrator recognize that as a path, or is it just like I can see that, but Illustrator will not? If you draw that squiggly line with a tablet or with the mouse.
Yeah, you mean with this pencil tool or the?
Yeah. Will Illustrator pick that up?
That's this question. That's this weird line of trick fills.
Okay.
Yes, it does, and you can make it do other things. So now I would go through and do the kerning and get the spacing right between the letters. At this point, I can just use the regular type tool, 1, 2, 3, triple click on it, adjust the kerning, right? Looks better in some places and not in others. The little line situation here, this is the handle for the text. Try it again, click on it. And this is the beginning and the end. So this letter, this word, 1, 2, 3, should be on the center choice. And then each letter is going to need to be kerned and tracked and played with individually. You may end up wanting to play with the size. And then at long last, once, if you change your font somewhere in the middle there, at long last, you may decide you don't like the path. You can click on the path. You can adjust the path. I am flattening the path. So even though the path has been drawn, you can still change the path. And then, as I showed in the last example, you may decide at some point, because you think you rather line these up perceptually as opposed to absolutely. Perceptually, you're doing what you think looks right. Absolutely is more the fact. Then you can do type and do create outlines and then do object and choose ungroup, and now you have each letter as a separate item. So you could just click on this L and nudge it over a couple of clicks. You can click on this E and nudge it over a couple of clicks. Right? So that's text on a path. Is that helpful? Is that what you were hoping for? Okay, good. All right, so that one is text on a path. Now I'm going to stop recording